Food and medicine is a form of mind control. We need to look at what's holding us back as a species. What paves the way for ignorance, apathy, and control by the elites? If we're to emerge from this mind control and the dark state of consciousness that we are in, we're artificially being held in this state of consciousness, then we need to be conscious about what we put into our bodies through food and what we put into our minds through what we watch, we take into our eyes and ears. What we take into our bodies and minds is information. Therefore, garbage in equals garbage out. Food is one thing that we do have a modicum of control over. But it takes willpower. Most people don't have the willpower to change their eating habit and end up eating toxic garbage. What you put into your mouth generates health and well-being, or conversely sickness and apathy. The first doctor of modern medicine, Hippocrates, is credited as saying, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." However, most people are ignorant about what is decent food and the levels of toxin that we can safely take into our bodies without affecting our minds, our judgment, our consciousness in general. The only way that we will understand what we're doing to our bodies is by understanding what has been done to our food supply. A person's willpower is being destroyed by food, including the will not to eat the food that they know to be wrong. In poisoning the body with poor food choices, we're also creating a karmic damage. Ignorance has consequences, and illness will result from eating poison, regardless of a personal belief that poison is food. Now, this is a vast topic and probably requires several videos, but the explanation provided here is brief. Each point summarizes how food impairs cognitive ability and how it applies to natural law. What is being done to our food is deliberate. Poisoning the food supply is not just because of greed or corporatism or corruption. It is about mind control, and we need to be aware of this and take proper action. Thomas Jefferson understood the mind-body connection. An attack on what we put into our bodies with food, medicine, and media is an attack on the mind-body connection that destabilizes the body and mind and psyche. Once people are destabilized, then they will be willing to believe anything, more manipulative. Proper nutrition is critical for correct thinking. Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industries want people to believe that only drugs can generate health. Health is not about nutrition. They want people to believe that you need medication to be happy and healthy. The lack of quality nutrition significantly imbalances the brain, specifically the neocortex. The neocortex needs good nutrition as the executive command center for higher thought. The destabilization of the neocortex through poor nutrition will fundamentally change the behavior for the worse. We will thus revert to a more reptilian-like mode of consciousness, which is base consciousness of pure egoistic selfishness and a more slave-like mentality. And this is right brain imbalance and left brain imbalance. We are also being denied good nutrition through legislation. For example, Codex Alimentarius, which makes nutritious food and supplements illegal in the category of controlled drugs. More information about Codex Alimentarius is available from the work of Dr. Rima Laibo. The worst offenders for producing toxic food include companies like Heinz, Coca-Cola, Hershey's, Kellogg's, Nestle, among many others. Most conventionally grown produce uses substantial amounts of chemical pesticides and fertilizers. The toxicity from these pesticides becomes systemic to that food. That is, it is distributed throughout the food. Therefore, washing it or peeling it won't make any difference. Long-term exposure to pesticides is linked with dementia. In addition, Roundup has been linked to genetic damage and endocrine gland dysfunction. Chemical fertilizers make soil turn over faster by replenishing the soil's nutrients, which are depleted because of how crops are grown. Natural organic farming techniques allow time for the soil to replenish naturally and become nutrient dense. This is accomplished by rotating food crops. Over-farming leads to the loss of the topsoil, and this creates an environmental catastrophe, as happened by the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. Food grown from depleted soil lacks nutrition. If we want to improve nutrition in our bodies and minds, we need to be active in changing how food is grown. We do this by voting with what we purchase when we go shopping. Food producers will listen to what people want when they buy. If we stop buying junk food, then they'll stop producing it. We must care enough about our bodies and the way food is grown. Preservatives are chemical additives that improve the shelf life of food. Food is supposed to rot, and preservatives stop this natural process for the benefit of the producers and the supermarkets. Unfortunately, these chemical preservatives are toxic, especially sodium nitrate in cured meats, which is carcinogenic and linked with colorectal cancer. Processed food. The amount of nutritional value in processed food diminishes the more that it is processed. Try to avoid prepackaged foods. White refined flour has no nutritional value and is added to most prepackaged food. High fructose corn syrup is added and is even more damaging to health. Yet the nutrition in rice is in the germ and the husk, and by removing these to produce white rice, it destroys its nutritional value. A general rule for good health is, if man made it, then don't eat it. Food colouring are artificial chemical additives to change the colour of food and make them more appealing, more attractive to children especially. Artificial dyes affect brain function and are linked to hyperactivity and behavioural disorders, especially in children. Sugar, flour, and eggs are examples of bleached foods. Bleached foods have harmful effects, including cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and heart failure, which are all metabolic disorders. Inflammation, high blood sugar, diabetes, and obesity. Artificial sweeteners are classified as excitatory neurotransmitters or excitotoxins. When they reach the brain, they open up the brain-blood barrier, and toxins that are usually filtered out get into the brain. These artificial sweeteners include NeuroSweet, aspartame, sucralose, Splenda, Equal, and others. Therefore, it is essential to avoid artificial sweeteners, as they also damage the central nervous system. Symptoms of neurological damage consumption including making people jittery, they give people headaches, and reduce cognitive function and the ability to focus and concentrate. Another completely artificial additive in food is MSG. It adds flavour to the food, but it is also an excitotoxin. SSRI antidepressants, for example Prozac, are among the most dangerous compounds that a person can put in their body. SSRI stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They reduce people's ability to feel emotions and they lose their moral compass. We need to feel emotions. Emotions play a massive role in our moral guidance system. People on antidepressants do not care about events in the world that do not directly affect them. The best a person who is on antidepressants can do is find a way to safely wean themselves off the drug and start to deal with their problems and the causal factors for their problems. Working on oneself requires willpower, requires self-knowledge, a lot of time, and the willingness to confront the trauma. It is said that reliving is relieving. Trauma has to be relived in order to be relieved and processed. Only harm is done when trauma is locked away in the back of the mind. Serotonin produces a feeling of well-being. As SSRIs prevent serotonin from reabsorbing, the increased serotonin levels in the brain cause a person to level off in their emotions and prevent them from experiencing a full range of emotions. Produces a zombie-like state of consciousness. SSRIs should only be prescribed to individuals who have organic illness and who have no control over their emotions. However, they are overprescribed to people who have normal ranges of emotions but might be feeling sad for a time. Trans fats, for example margarine and canola, are homogenized vegetable oils that create arterial grooving, especially around the heart, and they contribute to heart disease. Margarine is a trans fat that is pure poison. Canola strips the lining of arteries and is definitely linked to heart disease. Chlorine and fluoride is added to drinking water for purification and supposed benefit to teeth. Chlorine is added to drinking water and is absorbed through the skin and is inhaled through vapors from taking a shower. Chlorine causes arterial grooving and heart disease and absorbed through the skin. Fluoride is a poisonous byproduct of the aluminium manufacturing industry. Fluoride is added to rat poison, and it was added to the water supply in the Nazi concentration camps to make prisoners docile. There are no supposed benefits to dental health. However, it causes calcification of the pineal gland, which inhibits spiritual growth. High fructose corn syrup is not a natural product. It's a manufactured chemical process. And its consumption causes problems with the mind, including critical thinking. Health concerns also include a fatty liver, high triglycerides, insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Foods that you should avoid that usually contain fructose are soda, candy, ice cream, breakfast foods, snack foods, and packaged desserts. Genetically modifying food is done for a profit motive. It has no benefit to the consumer. It produces larger crops, faster turnaround, pest resistance. Unfortunately, modifying the genetic blueprint of a species causes more problems than it solves. The main concerns about GMOs are on health and the transfer of antibiotic resistance, toxicity, and allergenicity. Antibiotics are given to caged animals and poison their meat. They also can be found in GMO crops, drinking water, and medications. Antibiotics build up in our system. The resistance make it difficult to treat illness. Meat from factory farmed animals is poisoned with the adrenaline from when they are slaughtered. GMO corn that they consume, and the antibiotics that they are force-fed. Statistics show increased rates of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, all linked with modern industrial farm agriculture. So in everything, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. Matthew 7, verse 12. This is a universal principle, also known as the law of karma. It refers to how we treat others, which includes all of God's creatures. This is a principle of natural law, and according to natural law, those who harm animals and the cruel practices of farm factory will themselves be harmed. And those who can consume the food that was tortured and poisoned will also be harmed. We will not treat our children the way we treat animals. These animals have feelings. They care for their young. They feel pain, just like humans do. Pasteurization and homogenization destroys nutrition and proteins. It makes healthy food rancid and causes free radicals to form in the body. In addition, they denature milk by altering its chemical structure, and this causes damage to the lining of arteries, which increases the risk of heart attack. Deceptive labeling is a technique of obfuscation. For example, renaming high fructose corn syrup as crystalline fructose, or labeling dyed white bread as whole grain or wheat meal. Food producers were successful in forcing legislation so that they do not have to label food as GMO. New names for ingredients like aspartame, they name it as NutraSweet and other things that seem good, to hide the fact that it is toxic.